Hello, Horus Heresy fans. Welcome to Heresy, the Horus Heresy talk show. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about 6 existing Warhammer 40,000 plastic kits that you can use in your Horus Heresy armies right now with no changes, no issues, and no problems from your opponent on the tabletop because they're all completely legit in world. So, first of all, we're going to talk about the Rhino, right? So the classic Rhino that you can get from Games Workshop right now or from your local independent game store. So the story is in the Horus Heresy universe, for people who maybe aren't that familiar with it, is there was lots of different marks of things in use during the Heresy. So lots of different marks of power armor, lots of different marks of vehicles as well. And the 40k Rhino that we see is the Mars pattern Rhino, and all those Rhino chassis are the Mars pattern chassis. Now the one you can get for 30k from Forge World is called the Deimos pattern Rhino, and that's obviously just coming out in plastic next week as well. But you can use those different marks in 30k, and it's completely legit in the lore. And in fact, the Deimos pattern Rhino, because of the whole lost age of technology and lost STC things, the Deimos pattern Rhino is actually the more advanced version. No difference in the in-game rules. But, there were things that we use in 40k, the things that the army use in 40k, in some cases, are actually less advanced than what they were using during the Horus Heresy. So that Rhino that you can get from Games Workshop today, and your local independent game store, more preferably, is completely legit to use in 30k. And, even though that's coming out in plastic, you might want to mix them up, to give you a bit of variation in the army as well, or you might just prefer the look of it, so you can use that. Now, the knock-on effect of that is that other Rhino chassis things, which are, also Mars pattern, are also good in 30k. So the Predator, for example, that's not out in plastic yet, although we are expecting a plastic version of the Predator Deimos to be coming out for Heresy. But you can use the 40k Predator kit now in your games of Horus Heresy, and certainly for me, I really prefer the look of that kit to the Deimos ones. I don't really like the turret on the back of the vehicle thing. You might like to mix them again, but you can use that Predator now, and big deal for this is obviously it's a lot cheaper than the one that you can get from Forge World right now, and it means you can buy it from your local independent game store as well, which is a win-win situation. So that Predator, if you prefer that aesthetic, want to mix it up, whatever, you can use that right now. Small addition to this as well. I remember, because I'm pretty old, I remember the Predator Annihilator that came out in the 90s, which was a Space Wolf themed, a Space Wolf vehicle originally, model terms, and that came out with 4 las cannons. Now that version of the Predator Annihilator, which is like an earlier Mars pattern version, I think, that version's also completely legit in Horus Heresy. Now these, I've checked these on eBay today, these are like 150 to 200 pounds new in box from the 90s. So, if you're trying to save your money, you probably don't want to go and hunt those down. But those are also another completely viable Horus Heresy kit. And I'm genuinely considering whether I might want to pick some of them up for nostalgia purposes. Might be worth doing. So the third kit that you can use is the Vindicator. Now, the Vindicator is a really good vehicle in Horus Heresy. The rules are really good. It's really good at killing lots of Marines. It's really good at penetrating vehicles. And generally, it just fits with the theme of some legions, particularly your likes of Iron Warriors, Imperial Fists, Iron Hands, those kind of legions that are known for their, sort of tankiness. The Vindicator just always feels like a really good fit with those. And you can get the Vindicator, the existing plastic one, from Games Workshop and use that in your Horus Heresy armies. Now, the Forge World Vindicator, which again I would imagine we will see in plastic sooner rather than later, isn't actually that much different. It just has a very bulky gun shield, and so the aesthetics of the two aren't really different. It's mainly the Rhino part of the chassis that makes them look different, in my opinion. So again, depending on what you like, if you just want to save some money or if you maybe want to mix and match, the Vindicator kit, because of this Rhino legacy, is also a really good kit for you to use in your 30k armies. So that's the 3 Rhino variants out the way. Now you can, the Whirlwind kit in the old rules, there was also rules for the 40k Whirlwind, but they're very specific in the new rulebook that this is the Whirlwind Scorpius that they've got in the rulebook, which isn't, I don't think, the same as the one that's out for 40k, so I wouldn't go mixing and matching that one just yet. So the next thing that we've got is the drop pod, the mighty drop pod. So in Horus Heresy, there is a Rite of War, called Drop Pod Assault. Now, in Drop Pod Assault, all of your Marines go in drop pods, and they all drop down, make plan of fall, and have fight with your enemies, much like they do in the lore. The main difference is that, as opposed to 40k, you don't just have like one unit in a drop pod, you have your whole army of Marines all in drop pods, and there is no difference in the 40k drop pod and what they look like in Heresy. So there are different drop pods you can get from Forge World that do different things, but your standard drop pod is literally the same model. So if you want to run a drop pod assault army, which is really cool, that plastic drop pod from Games Workshop is what you would be using anyway, so you can definitely use that kit, which is another good crossover. The next one's the Landspeeder. Now, Landspeeders are pretty cool in Horus Heresy. They're really good units on the tabletop, and I think Landspeeders are a really classic Space Marine unit for me as well. Now, Forge will do what they call the Landspeeder Proteus, I think it is, which is the very, very old school one, which is basically, you know, a seat with jet engines and some guns, or 2 seats with jet engines and some guns. I really don't like the look of those. I think they look too sort of 80s and a little bit silly. But if you want to use a different type of Landspeeder, the more modern ones, those Games Workshop plastic ones are also completely legit in Horus Heresy. They also come with, you know, some different weapon options as well. You can't use all of the weapon options in Heresy, but, you know, they're very convertible. Graviton guns, for example, is a thing that you can take in Heresy, and it's much easier to convert the plastic ones to use those kind of things on Landspeeders than the resin ones. So that's, once again, another kit, and it is really good in the game as well. And certainly for some legions, like if you're playing White Scars, or, you know, something like Alpha Legion, where you've maybe got a maneuverability thing going on there, they really fit well as well. And the last squad is the classic Space Marine Scout Squad. Now, this is actually already been renamed on GamesWorkshop.com and a lot of independent stockists to be, you know, a Legion Scout Squad. Now, this is because they've released the rules for them, and this is obviously what they intend to use. So these are technically now the official models for this. And this has caused a little bit of consternation in the community because they look very 40k, and they've got the eagle on the chest as well, which is not a very 30k common thing. You know, people who know more about the lore than me will go into more detail than that probably, but basically they don't quite look 30k enough. So whilst this is the official kit, you can completely pick these up and use them in your games now. You know, it is, if you're really into the look and feel of your army, you might want to do some modelling work to get rid of that off the chest. The second thing with these Scout Squad kits is they're so old, if you've never put them together, they are a really, really bad kit. Like, even just getting the guns to fit with the hands and the arms, it's a really, really poor kit. So this is definitely a kit you could use. The Scouts are quite cool in game. They get Nemesis bolters, which lets them snipe people, you know, snipe guns out of units and that kind of stuff. So definitely a good kit, worth using, easy to pick up, nice cheap plastics to fill your army out. Just be aware that the kit's maybe not the best, and it's not really maybe the best fit for the world. So there you go. That is 6 kits that you can use today from Games Workshop. You even go and buy them, you know, today before the game has actually released. You know, you could start working on that army, start putting stuff together and start painting it, and you could be ready for that release day, you know, with some extra tanks, with a drop pod assault, or maybe with some scouts. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please do leave me a comment, a like, or a subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I'd really appreciate that. Now I'm going to leave you with a quote, a thought that's important when putting your armies together. Mortals cannot win war with what is eternal. Goodbye.